change was so dramatic and it was so significant that they couldn't really recognize who he was. And listen, I really believe that. I believe that the change that God's doing in your life, the change that he wants to do in some of your lives tonight, listen, it's going to be so transformative. It's going to be so significant. There's going to be people who don't even recognize who you are because of the healing work, because of the miraculous work, because of the thing he's doing and wanting to do in your life. And so in verse 10, they sort of ask sort of the natural response, the natural question of this is, how then were your eyes open? Like, you've gone through this change, you've gone through this transformation. How did it happen? What went on? What brought about this change? Like, we remember who you used to be. We remember how broken you were. We remember all the late nights of you just hanging out and partying. We remember how blind you were, you couldn't see. Like, what happened? And I love his response. How did your eyes get open? The whole life you've been blind, never seeing. And listen to his response is, he does talk about the process a little bit later on, but the very first thing that comes out of his mouth, when it comes to explaining this change, explaining this transformation, simply in verse 11, he says, the man they call Jesus. How am I different? How have I changed? It's all about a man called Jesus. Because listen, there's some stuff. I'm not talking about a little change, not talking about a little bit of a touch-up or tune-up in your life. I'm talking about when things are so bad, when you don't see any hope, there's no reason to explain how you could ever get through this or anything good could come from this. The only explanation this man had in his life for the healing and the miraculous and the change in his life was a man they call Jesus. See, maybe, just maybe, when you look at the mud and you look at the circumstances in your life, maybe you had to get this broken so that the only glory that anybody could get was that the doctors wouldn't get the glory, the hospital wouldn't get the glory, the therapist wouldn't get credit, but only and simply and totally a man named Jesus. See, he walked him through this process on a purpose. And the purpose wasn't to glorify himself. It wasn't to lift his name up. It was to lift up the name of Jesus. It was about shining a light on his glory. Listen, what if the reason it's been so bad that the only answer when others look at your situation, they look at the miracle, and they look at how they bring you, how God brings you through, the only answer you can give anybody for the change in your life is a man named Jesus. See, what if it's just a stage? And yeah, it's a stage, it's a season. To get to where God's calling you to get to, you're going to stumble and you're going to fall and you're going to slip up sometimes. But what if it's more than that? What if your struggle is also his stage? See, again, going back to it was so the works of God may be put on display, so his light, so he can Motel 6 this whole process in this man's life of God's working. See, what if it had to be this bad, this messy, this ugly, this public? Well, what if they had to see your marriage break in the way that it broke in front of everybody? What if you had to go through that seeming humiliation, failure so publicly, the way that you did? Because God wasn't simply wanting to heal you. Wasn't just simply wanting to do a miracle in your life, but he was wanting to bring about healing in someone else's too. He was wanting to shine a light, not just on the healing work that he was doing in your life, but shine a light on his greatness, shine a light on his glory, and ultimately open up not just your eyes, but the eyes of everyone around you, that listen, when Jesus gets involved, the miraculous can happen. When Jesus gets involved, the impossible can happen. When Jesus gets involved, I don't care what your situation is. I don't care how impossible it is. We serve a God who makes the impossible possible, right? And we sit there, and again, you can sit there and you look at that story. It's like, well, still, again, why? Why would you want them to watch my weakness, right? But maybe I want them to see my work through your weakness. I want them to watch you stumble and watch you kind of struggle in a season. And not to embarrass you, not to humiliate you, not to frustrate you. But the reason I've allowed this weakness, allowed you to walk in your weakness to this call and this leading is because I want to shine a light on my strength. Listen, God has an amazing call and purpose in your life. But again, you're not going to get there. It's not going to be a swan dive. You know, some of you, I think God brought you here tonight because tonight is your night to surrender your life to Jesus. That tonight, even as I've been talking, he's been trying to flip a switch on, shine a light in your relationship with him. To shine a light that regardless of your circumstance, regardless of the mud going on that you've got in your life, the brokenness you've got going on, is to shine a light on his goodness and his greatness, and that when you have a willingness and you have the courage to trust him with your weakness, to take a step and to keep stepping, even if it's a stumble and even if it's a struggle, to shine a light on a God who hasn't forgotten you, hasn't lost sight of you, has still sent you, has got an amazing plan and an amazing purpose for you, has brought you here to open up your eyes to his greatness and his goodness. And I'm telling you, if you'll have the courage to surrender your life to him, you'll have the courage to cannonball into a relationship with Jesus, just watch the waves he makes in your life. You think it was something, this guy's story, and the waves he made in Jerusalem and the people that came to faith because of his story. I can only imagine the waves your life will create. That brother, that sister, that coworker, that when they see God do what only God can do, the change that only God can bring, transformation that only God can bring about in your life, where they're like, man, I barely even recognize who you are. What's going on? Listen, he's going to do something miraculous, not just in your life, but through your life in the world around. Every head bowed, every eye closed.